It's the DORK Podcast.
Keefe Davey.
It's the DORK Podcast. Hashtag. It's the hashtag DORK Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Hashtag Dork. My name is Rich Keefe, joined as always by Davey Eyeballs. He is Rhaenyra Von Daenerys. All hail the King of Ginger Ale. It's Ryan Davey. Davey, how are you?
Just alive with pleasure.
Oh,
today.
I love to hear that.
Yeah, happy to not be eaten by crabs.
Oh my God, there's a lot to unpack there.
A lot to unpack there.
That is graphic. Yep. So
Yes.
Dem Thrones Boyz will be back. If you're looking for Scheim, he's going to join us coming up in just a little bit. But we still have, for the few people out there, and I dare say only a few of you are not watching House of the Dragon based on all of their numbers, everything they're putting out there. When we do a House of the Dragons themed episode, we're still going to do This Week in Dork. So there's still going to be plenty of stuff for those that are not watching it. Like right now.
This week in DORK. Yeah.
All right. I don't know if this counts really as This Week in Dork, but I've seen the rehearsal finally.
Yes, this has been that show that's been recommended to me by everybody I don't know.
Yep.
Everybody's coming up like, you gotta watch it. Tell me what you think.
Oh, man. And so my take on it, and I tweeted this at Dork Podcast over the weekend, is really, for better or worse, it would be Rick and Morty's favorite show.
I'm intrigued. See, when you, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing when you tweeted it out like that.
It's probably both. And I think people who have seen both shows would understand the reference. And, you know, there's one episode in particular that's just incredibly meta. And I've heard people explain it to me. They're like, oh, he's basically like rehearsing for people to do things or whatever. And so
the way it was pitched to me is that, like, if you have a major life event coming up, this dude shows up and you get to rehearse it before you actually do it.
Yeah. And it's just like so much detail to it. So much detail. So I'd heard that. Like the first episode, this isn't a huge spoiler, but it's also been out for a while. The first episode, a guy had been lying to his trivia team and wanted to come clean about a lie. To me, the first episode's actually the best episode, but that's just me. Maybe you'd still like it. Now, I also heard there was a lot of shit for the last episode because a kid was involved, and anytime kids are involved, it can be kind of dicey.
You're
What's
right.
real, what isn't real, that kind of thing. And so I went in kind of knowing that already. So I liked the show. It's incredibly smart. It's pretty funny, like at times, but it's also just like so over the top. Like, you know, they're doing this, but it's really this. And now they're setting up this. And now it's just like so many
Also,
moving
just
pieces.
keeping you on your toes the whole time,
Yeah.
huh?
Oh yeah, you gotta keep your head on a
visual chess match. You're just like,
It's unlike any show. Now, I never watched Nathan For You, but this is unlike any show I've ever seen. But mixed reviews. I could see if you talk to 10 people,
yes,
2, it probably is their favorite show of the year. 2 probably fucking hated it. Another 5 are probably like, yeah, it's good. Watch it. You know what I mean? Like, I bet this is going to have the most polarizing.
And one person's like, I don't get it.
Oh, definitely. Oh, maybe 2 people would say, I don't get it. Yeah. There's that. Speaking of, I don't get it. Well, maybe I do get it. We had the first trailer for Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Yeah.
The horror film. Of course, Winnie the Pooh is now in the public domain. So if Davey and I wanted to make a Winnie the Pooh movie with Igor and Piglet, we could make one.
Now, so what's public domain is Winnie the Pooh, like the book, not the Disney character. So that's why you can't dress him the same as the Disney characters. There's like a whole thing because Disney has obviously used Winnie the Pooh for other things.
But do you go no pants? You go no pants like Winnie the Pooh?
Right, but it's the character, like the book character, not the Disney character.
Do you have any interest in seeing this film?
0% interest.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll watch it when it comes out on like Pluto TV or.
Yeah.
I'm not going to the theater, obviously.
No, I'm not spending a dime to see this movie.
Have you seen The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power on Amazon Prime?
I saw one clip on Twitter, and I laughed out loud at how like cringy it was.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot of interest in this, and maybe enough people will sway us. Maybe people email us, dorkpodcast@gmail.com, or tweet us.
We just alienated like a dozen people, by the way. What our take on that? No, I think there's like 12 people who are like, "Fuck you!" You know, I can't wait to see those DMs.
I think it might be a hard time to come out too, because how many epics can you watch at one time?
Too many, man. Like, you're gonna put this in direct competition with Game of Thrones? Like, you
That's
out
what
of
I'm
your
saying.
mind?
I think that's gonna be the worst part of it. I think if there's like a dry spell and you're like, oh, not a lot of epics. Then maybe you
So
could be watching.
the one scene I saw on Twitter, it was like they were fighting like this troll, right? And there was that female character, the blonde, and then there's like this guy who's like supposed like he's a human, I guess, but like
All right, we'll go with
she's
it.
running towards this troll, and he puts his sword down, like creating like a ramp,
Yeah.
and she like runs up his sword, and she like throws her like over his head, like launch it. It's the stupidest thing I've ever
Was
seen.
that the same scene where there was a guy in the corner and he stood up and yelled,
Grab his dick and twist it!
That would have been more useful of a tactic, I think. If there's
I saw that scene too. That was
and What We Do in the Shadows, there's a great scene with a troll, and he is hanging dong, and there's
That is a great
big flopping dong. Yeah,
She-Hulk episode 3. That show just keeps kind of moving right along.
dude. What? But like, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing? Like, I don't. Did you watched it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They say in the beginning, oh, this is going to be one of those shows with like a bunch of cameos.
Well, I think they were
And
joking.
then they bring out Megan the Stallion for fucking no reason.
Yeah.
No reason.
No, they it's gonna be one of those shows actually, and every single week there's gonna be one. But I think that may have been the joke. But the other thing is, as much as I'm just trying to enjoy the 30-minute show, the She-Hulk CGI is trash. And it's weird scenes. Like if she's actually doing something, it's not that bad. But there was the scene, it was either post-credit 1 or 2.
The
where she's
twerking
just-
scene.
Well, there's the courtroom scene, but she's
No,
moving.
the twerking scene.
Oh, the twerking scene. Terrible. Terrible.
Yeah.
I like Megan Thee Stallion too. She just got hit after hit after hit.
Yeah.
But there's the scene where they probably just shouldn't have shown it. I think they did it as a deleted or a post-credit scene for a reason where she's just like helping her dad move boxes.
Yeah.
It just like looks like she's walking on like a different plane than the actual
Right.
earth that she's on.
And
So, yeah.
I feel bad because you hear the stories of like those teams that are working on this.
Oh,
It's
to
like,
the bone. Yeah.
and it's like slave labor. Like
Yeah.
they are just like getting worked to death, like
Yeah.
with this whole thing, and they can't meet deadlines, and they're
not
and
good.
it's how many people are working on an Avengers movie versus how many people are working on She-Hulk, and people expect it to look the same. Like I get it, but like
Yeah, it's a lot.
it's a lot.
Rick and Morty season 6 came out last night. I DVR'd it, haven't watched it yet.
Solid episode.
Good
So
start.
they're trying to like. There's been a lot of what's been going on with Rick and Morty. So if you followed along for like the first 5 seasons, like this is like Beth might be a clone. Like there might be another Beth. So there's now 2 Beths.
Right.
And now they're trying to reset all the things they've done in the portal.
Got it.
So it's kind of like if you this isn't, if you're new to Rick and Morty, you probably can't jump in here and be like, oh, because you have to like, there's
Yeah,
a lot of callbacks and shit like that. So it was kind of hard to follow, but some funny parts.
All right.
So Morty's new catchphrase is like the fuck, which is great. And he does it, the fuck. So
I
yeah,
do like that.
yeah.
I do like that. Very good. By the way, AEW, I'm not going to get into the whole thing. We do a little bit of wrestling on this podcast, but apparently for like months, there's been rumors of like how bad like the backstage is like in real life and like how so many guys aren't getting along. Apparently, some of this we saw it firsthand, so there's no like sources. Some of it is like rumors and speculation. But so CM Punk apparently has issues with certain members, and he made it very clear. One thing they do, which I love, just like in sports, they do post-match like press conferences.
That's great.
And the ones I've seen, they like break character and they're just like talking about shit like real. Like Jericho did one yesterday and it was great. And so CM Punk was calling out all these guys. And in his thing, he was like, and if anybody has a problem with me, come up to my face. Well, apparently, this is where the rumors come in. People did go up to his face. So the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, who also are like high up and like helped found the company. So they're not just wrestlers. And so it's one of the reasons why he's beef with them, I guess, whatever. They came up to him, and CM Punk had his old trainer with him, this dude named Ace Steel. And apparently one of the Young Bucks got knocked out. They're not sure how, but I'm guessing CM Punk knocked him out. And Ace Steel apparently bit Kenny Omega. And there was like a chair thrown and something else. So it's like fucking chaos in the backstage at AEW.
Okay, so there's these wrestling terms that I always get backwards, right?
Yep.
So a shoot is something that you do off the cuff, and a work is something that's been like we've worked it out ahead of time.
Yep. Yeah.
So is this a shoot or a work?
I'm pretty sure it's a shoot.
Like this is real?
I think it is. Now the question is like, can they take a shoot and turn it into a work, or like, will certain guys just not want to work with other guys? Like CM Punk had a big issue with this guy Hangman Page because of one of the promos that he had. So when they were feuding, Hangman cut a promo on him, and I think Punk thought that it crossed the line. So like 2 months later, when Punk came back from injury, he was like in the ring, and he was like supposed to be talking about his match with John Moxley, and he calls out Hangman Page. And he's like, if you like, come on out and fight me or whatever. And they're like, well, dude's not even in the building. Like, you're just
like, he's not even here tonight.
And it's
like,
not part of the script.
He's at home. Yeah.
So it's just like really weird. So he's pissed about all these other guys that are there. There's a whole thing. But what's great is the owner of AEW is Tony Khan, the Jacksonville Jaguars owner's son.
Right.
And he sits next to these guys for all the press conferences. So CM Punk's going on and on. He's like, oh yeah, we work with a bunch of stupid kids and all these stupid idiots and all this stuff. And he's just like shaking his head, and like his eyes get big. He's like, okay.
What are you gonna do at that point, right? You just gotta lean into it at that point, I guess.
I don't know what you're gonna do. Right. You know what? We have a lot to get to, but we gotta punt some of these things, is what I've decided to do, because I want to get I got this today. That's right. Should I have bought this? Brought to you by 47 Brand. This one comes in from Nathan, and this is a real special item here, Rye.
I love when you don't send me these ahead of time, by the way. I love like being surprised by these.
I want you to guess. You don't know what it is, and you certainly don't know how much it costs. So this one comes in from Nathan, and he says, hey guys, hope you enjoy. He said something that he made. So he says, please remember, construction costs are up due to supply chain issues.
Right.
So this is something, and again, if you're watching us on YouTube, you can see what it is. Otherwise, Davey will explain and describe it for you. Look at this beauty. So I'll tell you, because it's flat. I don't have all the angles.
Look at that.
It's a Pong table, but what is special about this Pong table?
What is special about this Pong table is that it has our logo on it. And it has on one side, you have my Mega Man logo, which was created by Goo, I believe, right?
Yes.
And a 47 Brand logo on the other side.
How about that?
And not to mention, so you have on one side it says too hot, and the other side it says too cold. So you have it's all black with the red Dork logo, too hot, too cold, Davey's Video Game Minute, and the 47 Brand logo. Wow, pretty amazing. It is a full size Pong table, huh?
And he says this is from Nathan. He said, I had the idea to make this table in the hopes it could be used in some way to kick off some fundraising for Davey's upcoming Movember efforts.
Oh, wow.
He goes, possibly you could work in a deal with Idle Hands, do a tournament or something. He says, you're the idea man. I'll leave that up to you. In any case, it was fun to make. Happy to drop it off at the brewery or whatever. So not only did he make this, but he's willing to give it to us as well. But
that's amazing. So thank you, Nathan. Thank you so much for making this. And I've never looked better on a beer pong table. So
he broke down the price of everything. But honestly,
this is how we do it. This is how we do it.
He actually did a great job, and he broke.
That's a great job. I hope the people at 47 see it.
Paints, 47 Brand's getting some love on there too. So
yeah, I hope they see it.
Love it. So there you go, Nathan. Thank you, man. We'll get in contact with you via email. We'll think of something, but I love it. I love the idea. Love the whole thing. Very, very good. All right, let's rip this.
It's time for Davey's Video Game Minute, even if it takes more than a minute.
All right, Dave, what do you have?
Like you said, we get a lot to do, so there's plenty we got to do today, and we got to get Scheim in here. But I want to quickly, so Multiverses rolls on. We're adding characters, so you would be interested to know that Gizmo and Stripe are coming to Multiverses as both as playable, not the same character, but as playable characters.
I love it.
Moreover, it's rumored that internet sensation, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Big Chungus is coming to the Multiverses, the fat version of
Bugs Bunny.
Of Bugs Bunny. So that game's rolling along. It's one of the most downloaded games of the year. Yeah, he's a big hoss. Yeah. Here's something that happened a little over a week ago that I forgot to mention last week. So this was kind of big news that kind of flew under the radar. Twitch is now allowing content creators to create on other platforms. And it was usually, if you were a Twitch partner, you couldn't go on YouTube or Facebook Live or anything like that. You had to create content exclusively for Twitch. That is now null and void. And now creators are free to do whatever they want, whether it be non-video game, whatever, or OnlyFans or anything like that. Like, they are now free to do that. And with that news, so now Ninja, who's one of the highest viewed Twitch streamers, and Pokimane, who is another person who's like in the tens of thousands every time she streams, are now scaling back what they do because they don't have to do video game content all the time.
Gotcha.
I did this for a while, and I was like, streaming and having a schedule and doing it all the time really took the fun out of playing video games. So I can't imagine like how it is for them having to do this for like 8-9 hours a day, every fucking day. Like, how much Fortnite can you play? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how many times can you get stream sniped and like all this shit? So, and then it came out. What percentage of Twitch streamers do you think make a livable wage?
3%.
3%. What if I told you? 0.015% of all Twitch streamers make what is considered a livable wage.
What do you think livable? I guess it depends on what part of the country.
It depends on where you live, but I think above minimum wage. Like, you have to do it like above, and that's crazy. Like, what do you think a livable wage is? Like, 30,000?
How much?
30? That might be lowballing it. Like,
you'd have to fucking scrape by. Well, again, depending on where you live. You live in Massachusetts, I don't know where you're gonna live for that.
You're gonna have roommates. You're gonna Like, I remember making that amount of money as a new teacher and barely scraping by. So like
your life is different.
Yeah, so it's either I would say 30,000. Like, that's crazy money too. Like, if I made $30,000 streaming, I never did.
Oh my god.
No, I think I made like, because they pay you bi-monthly, like every 8 weeks, like you get a check.
There you go.
And I think I made like $400.
Hey,
like that was it. Like that, but that was at like the peak thing.
How much did you have to give to the man?
Well, that was. So then that's the other thing. So then you get. I didn't make enough for this, but if you get 1099, because technically you're an independent contractor.
Right.
So you got to put half of that away for taxes.
Very good.
Shit's crazy.
Y'all ready for biz? Right, ready for the topic of the tour? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's the topic of the day. And today it is House of the Dragon Season 1, episodes 1, 2, and 3 of 10. And we can't talk Thrones here on the hashtag Dork podcast without Dem Thrones Boyz.
Bring them out. Bring them out.
What's up? Dem Thrones Boyz right again. Let's go, baby.
Did you ever think there would be a day?
Yeah. Never. I didn't think this day would come. I didn't think that there would be a show I didn't think there would be a Game of Thrones spinoff worth talking about. And yet here we stand. Or sit.
Here we are. 3 episodes in. And that actually, let me get Davey's take on this first. We'll do spoiler free. This is for the first 3 episodes. I know after the first episode, Davey, we talked about it, and you weren't as into it right away as I was. Where are you at now after 3?
I'm more optimistic than I was. I don't know if I'm all the way in, but I'm like, okay, we're starting to do some interesting things. And once we talk spoilers, we're going to talk it, but there's some interesting things happening right now that I think was a bit of a slow build. We did, as we would say, some world building.
There's a little bit of that character development. That's the thing with Game of Thrones. You're going to get a lot of characters thrown your way. You got to do your best to keep up. Scheim, where are you at? And were you in right away, or did it take you a minute?
Yeah, so I was in right away. I was in right from the premiere. I've read this book. I was very excited. I was like, oh, this is a very interesting story to take. And so as soon as they started telling it on the screen again, I was all in. It felt like Game of Thrones again. It felt like something I loved and enjoyed, and not like that final trash season.
So explain to the layman, is this a book within those books from before? Is this a separate prequel book? What is this?
This is a book he released separately called Fire and Blood, which actually it's more of a collection of stories about the Targaryen family. It's literally like an anthology of Targaryen history, more or less. And so this is one of the stories in particular that is told within the book.
So has everything to this point played out like the book? Because I know talking to
More or
Sharp,
less.
talking to you, like the first season of Game of Thrones was like the first book, like almost identical. Is this kind of following that playbook, you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, so far it seems to be going in that direction. I think they have a lot of liberty. I think that's one of the cool things about this compared to Game of Thrones is Game of Thrones there was so much source material. With this, there is source material, but I think there's a lot of room to work around it and kind of play with it how you want.
David, were you hesitant because of how Game of Thrones ended, or was it more just because it's a spin-off prequel and how can it compare to such a great show?
I think it's a mix. I think it's a mix of the two. I think it's always difficult. I mean, we've seen this. We've seen Better Call Saul all the way through, and now I've been like, well, fuck.
And that was great.
You're going to do a prequel or a spinoff, like that's how you do it, right? And I think, so I'm happy with that. And again, I just think that the biggest letdown, and the last time we spoke about Game of Thrones, I think the three of us consensus was like, well, that wasn't very good.
Yeah,
So
it's a tough day.
It was a tough day for the three of us, and I think my trepidation with this is just okay. Let's wait and see if they're going to handle this, like how they're going to handle this. And obviously, HBO is just dumping everything they have, like at the show, budget wise, and all that stuff. So it is right on par with what we're used to seeing. But it's not without its issues, I think. But I'm happy that it's trending a certain way.
Well, it was a world that we all spent so much time with, and whether Scheim read the books or not, like it's still so many hours that we spent viewing and then rewatching and then talking about. You know, we did an episode for just about every season. I know Scheim did his recaps that we have on the podcast or the YouTube channel here. And it's a cool world. And I think one of the things that people had an issue with and why they claimed that they weren't going to go back and watch, but clearly they are, over 10 million people are watching every single week, was, well, if we know way down the line that it ends this way, why would I want to watch it over here? And it's like, yeah, but there's still so much story to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like these characters and just dragons and all these other creatures, and there's going to be there's already things we've seen in these 3 episodes that we never saw in, what is it, 7 seasons or 8 seasons of Game of Thrones?
And just because this is a precursor too, it doesn't mean it's information you're aware of, right? Like it's not the Mad King. You don't know exactly how this ends. 99% of the people watching this who haven't read Fire and Blood don't know how this ends. Like it's a completely different story just within that same world.
And for me, I guess the one thing I'm sticking with right now is like there are those subtle callbacks to call forwards to Game of Thrones, and then some that are like totally ham-fisted, like totally like, hey, remember this? Like, because they keep bringing up the prince who was promised, or whatever the fuck they call Jon Snow.
Oh yeah, the prince who was promised.
The prince was, and then but there's subtle things in there too that they don't. And I always watch like the end of the episode.
Yeah,
like that with the showrunners, and they kind of like talk you through it. And there was a little bit of a time jump, and they said, we want the viewers to be paying attention and listening to what people are saying, because we're not going to do it like 3 years later. You know, like we're not going to do that. We need you to pay attention.
Yeah, there's dialogue in there that makes it clear.
Yeah.
I also think it's interesting too. You mentioned how they kind of like pushed that the prince that was promised vision thing coming back up again. It's unique though to the show, because that doesn't happen in the books, right? Like in Targaryen lore, that vision isn't like widely discussed, but it's just kind of believed that like Rhaegar Targaryen read it somewhere and believed it all of a sudden. And that's why he was so convinced that his kid would eventually be that prince. And so it's like this unique thing where it's like, they have to kind of reinforce that now to create that connection. But in George R.R. Martin's writing, he never actually even did that.
Yeah. So that's where I think it like comes, the writers of the TV show, like kind of like now the three of us are learned scholars. We're very well read. Mm-hmm. But for those people who are kind of dum-dums watching the show, be like, remember this? You know,
or even the Romans or Greeks.
Yeah.
I'm sort of right on that line of being like, I'll take any Easter egg you have for me. Yeah. I'll take it, because it's similar to like the Star Wars universe. And now we've seen so many different Star Wars things, but at a certain time, I'm like, they should be talking about Darth Vader. If they're not talking about Darth Vader, they're like, why aren't they talking about Darth Vader? Like, he exists in this time. And so I'm okay. And now I think Game of Thrones will be an interesting rewatch, and maybe not the last season, but all the other seasons, just because there is so much dialogue and they do reference the past. and now you're gonna see certain things like, oh shit, we saw that guy. Or like, oh, we saw like, I'm sure there's gonna be like a war. There's gonna be something that takes place that they're gonna reference. So I'm definitely looking forward to all of that. So me and Scheim seem to think it's a must watch. Are you on the must watch camp, Davey, or are you still?
Give me one more. Give me one more. This is a strong. You should watch this.
Yeah.
If someone says, "Should I watch this?" My answer is yes.
Yeah, I think so.
If I'm not going to give it the like, I'm not going to give it the incredulous like, "You're not watching this yet."
The tone.
But if someone says, "Should I watch this?" I'm like, yeah, like definitely. It's definitely worth your time.
Yeah, I'm trying to compare it. Like Scheim, I would say the first episode of the first season of Game of Thrones knocked my socks right off my feet. Like,
Yeah,
that was insane. I like this very much. Don't get me wrong, but like if we're just comparing the two shows, early Game of Thrones, I think it was better.
see, I think the first episode knocked you off your feet, but after the first episode of Game of Thrones, from like 2 to 8, it is a slog.
It's a lot of Winterfell.
Whereas I think this show already has better pacing. Did it knock your socks off quite as much in the first one? No, it more knocked you ajar a little bit. And then, but the pacing has been tremendous through 3 episodes. Whereas I think Game of Thrones struggled with that because the material is so dense.
And I'll give you this: more dragons so far, so that also sucks me right in.
Did you guys see my tweet last night? I didn't mean to get technical on you.
No, please, no, air it for the people.
They're technically wyverns. They're not dragons.
Because they have 4 legs, right?
Dragons have 4 feet. Wyverns have 2 feet.
Well, so then Daemon's dragon is in fact a dragon.
If it has 4 legs,
it does. His is the long red one. It has 4 legs, but Rhaenyra's dragon, I think his name is Cyrax, only has 2.
It's snakes out there this big.
What a fucking great name, and an awesome Mortal Kombat character.
Damn right.
Cyrax. Yeah,
I used him a lot. Yeah. He was yellow. So you're like, oh, my planet is Scorpion? You're like, no, it's like a
robot Scorpion.
Robot one, kind of.
Somehow with dreadlocks. I don't know.
Huge net, though, he'd cast out.
Oh, sure.
He's the one with the saw that came out of his chest, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then he had that big thing. It was basically get over here, but he'd cast this giant net.
Yes.
Bring it back. It's just absolutely unnecessary. All right. Anything else non-spoiler you guys want to hit on?
No, sir.
All right.
Spoilers! Here come the spoilers!
All right,
okay, hang on. Wait, wow. So we're in spoiler. I have a question that it's been killing me. It's been killing me, right? So now we're into spoilers, right?
Oh my God, David just started.
So what's the king's name right now is?
Viserys.
His knife that he wears, that's the knife that Arya gets.
So that is, in fact, the exact same knife that Arya eventually kills the Night King with. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
The knife he has in his belt.
That is like the major Easter egg that nobody like directly says in links to Game of Thrones. He just says, make sure you take care of this knife. That is the exact same knife. Yes.
Okay. Because he wears it like on his belt, and I could tell from the handle, it is a full tang knife. For those of you who are wondering at home, we have to make sure we say that. But I saw the handle. I'm like that. I think that's the one that Littlefinger gives to Arya, right?
Correct. Or no, that's the one where it was the assassin tried to kill Catelyn and Bran with it.
Yep.
And then Arya gets it and eventually kills Littlefinger with it, and that's what started the whole war. Yes.
Okay.
Can't confirm or deny.
That's my big question. I needed you to answer that, Scheim.
That was the dagger.
Yeah.
See, I like all that shit. All the little breadcrumbs you leave me. I'm in for all of it. There's a bunch. We'll get to some more of the connections that they've laid out. The one time they did kind of make it pretty easy for the audience was the very, very beginning, where they were like, this took place, I think they said 170 years before the birth.
187, I believe it is, because it's just shy of 200.
Yeah, so just under 200 from like the birth of Daenerys.
Yep.
And so you're like, all right, and obviously she was a major figure throughout the whole Game of Thrones series. So then in my head, I'm like, all right, so how many like generations is this? This is like great grandfathers we're kind of dealing with. You're clearly going to hear a lot of the same names, but there is time jumps. And one of the complaints at the end of Game of Thrones was sort of how they just sped everything up, right? It used to take a really long time to get to A to B. Now all of a sudden it's like, hey, we're there. It's like we just traveled the map. We're like Muppets. We travel by map. Everybody's like, here we are. This one in just 3 episodes has already done one, and they're gonna do another one this season. They've already announced where they're even gonna change some of the actresses.
Yes.
Are you guys good with that? There was at least a 3-year jump between episode 2 and episode 3. I don't think it was that jarring, but
No.
knowing that people like a slow, kind of methodical Game of Thrones, do you think that is an issue?
I would rather the time jumps than any more child bride scenes. That made me very uncomfortable.
So uncomfortable. I also think too, the time jump is a little bit less jarring than the immediate transportation time, right? Like it's like, oh, I can connect A to B. So there's just for a fact there is a long time period that occurred. But if all of a sudden some guy runs from beyond the wall back to the wall in like an hour, it's like, well, did he actually do that? It's a little different.
Yeah, he's the fastest man alive.
Exactly.
The fuck?
The Flash.
But I will tell you, was it Matt, the guy who plays Damon?
Yeah, Matt Smith.
Wheels. You see him running? And that guy can fly.
He can move.
I can scoot. They were like, somebody had the meme. They were like, Damon can zigzag, and then was it Rickon Stark? They're like, can't zigzag.
Cannot zigzag. Serpentine.
It's straight. Fucking arrow to the chest. Dude, move around a little.
All he had to do was run like a foot to his right.
No, he just
and have John go like,
he ran a straight go route. He's like, I'm gonna beat him with speed. I'm gonna beat this bow and arrow with speed.
Not only that, but like, what's his name had to lead him into that too. So he had to know he was
Ramsey. Nice shot.
Yeah.
Would you say though, in these 3 years, not as much turmoil? Like when we get into Game of Thrones, like shit hits the fan pretty early, and from that moment on, it's like chaotic. Like everywhere you go, it's just chaos. If they're willing to sort of start here, and yeah, there's a little bit of an issue where Viserys is like, hey, I need to find my heir, and I'm going with Rhaenyra, and then Daemon's pissed. Like that's sort of what you get. But then 3 years, guess life is fine. I know there's the one war going on, one battle, if you will, but everything else must be decent if you're willing to skip 3 years.
Well, they mentioned multiple times that it's like a time of prosperity. The king prior to Viserys, Jaehaerys, was like the greatest Targaryen king ever because it was just all peace and prosperity across the land. And so right now, outside of finding an heir and the one battle with the crab feeder, they're just like kind of moving along and enjoying life.
They're kind of good. And so this is, I looked up a little bit, and that I like spoiled myself, but really only for 2 or 3 episodes. So everything we've seen so far is like what I read ahead when I knew the show was first coming out. Like I knew about sort of, the battle of the heirs, and then him getting married to a young girl and having kids and whatever. So that's kind of all I know. So any kind of prediction I have no clue after that. But is he essentially like the 5th Targaryen king? Does that sound right, Scheim? Like sort of early on in this Targaryen rule, but there's been a few before him.
Yeah, so there's
early.
Yeah, so Aegon came over. I think they calculated as their like BCAC is basically post and pre-fall of Valyria. So the fall of Valyria happened. Aegon comes to Westeros, conquers Westeros. I think that is basically 0 AC for them. And so now we're like 100 years in. So this is probably like the 4th or 5th Targaryen king.
Yeah,
I think I can look. I'll recheck the family
sounds
tree.
Right.
That sounds about right.
Just trying to wrap my head around the whole thing, and it appears that we basically have 3 leads. I don't know if you guys disagree with this or not, but King Viserys, his brother Prince Daemon Targaryen, and then his daughter and oldest kid Rhaenyra. There are other big characters, but I feel like this show essentially is those 3. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree. Kind of like how Game of Thrones really focused on guys like it was Jon Snow, Arya, Jaime Lannister, Cersei, Daenerys. This is focusing primarily on these 3.
And I would add the High Towers in there as well.
Yes. Yeah. Alicent, who's now the queen, and then Otto, her dad, is the Hand of the King.
Yeah.
And Ed Too Tall Jones, the High Tower from Police Academy,
and Dante,
may God rest his soul.
Former Patriots linebacker Dante. What if he shows up in episode 4? Is that fucking Dante? No wonder he retired. There's Dante Hightower. Also interesting. Now, maybe Scheim, you can correct me on this one, but I don't remember any High Towers in the Game of Thrones series. So is that a name that got kind of wiped out of existence?
So I think there are a few high towers mentioned, but they're now in the Game of Thrones world. I think they're very far down the rungs. I think the names that you have to watch out for, like the name Valerian.
Yes.
We haven't gotten to Corlys Valerian yet, but like that name is a name you don't hear anymore.
Ooh, okay.
And sorry, it was Bubba Smith who was
Bubba
Hightower, and
yes,
sorry, Ed Too Tall Jones was in another movie, but sorry.
Who's dead? Who's alive? What's the deal?
Bubba Smith was Hightower.
Tonight.
Sorry, yeah,
It's not distract from the point. It doesn't.
I know. Sorry.
At this point, it doesn't matter. No, but I'm just thinking like something to keep an eye out. Now I know Otto Hightower, and if he has his daughter, and then she marries a Targaryen, like I guess her name is gonna get kind of lost in the shuffle there. But it was like because they did mention there was a Dondarrion, and
so that's a different one. So Kristen Cole, I believe, is the son of Dondarrion, but Kristen Cole is also technically Dornish, and the Dorne realm isn't part of Westeros at this period, which means he left Dorne and came to Westeros and is currently trying to make a name for himself. So he was adopted by some guy just named Dondarrion that has no relation to Beric Dondarrion.
So the Dorns are still across the sea.
Yeah.
No, so the Dorns are still
stuff.
like on that peninsula at the bottom, just doing their own thing. They have their own culture at this point.
Florida.
Yeah, bingo. Basically.
Oh, so there's no Beric Dondarrion tie-in?
I don't believe so.
You're
No.
probably right. All right. Is Viserys a good king? And the reason I even bring this up, this is another meme. People are great on memes. And so this is another meme I saw is there was one where who's old man Lannister, the fuck was his name?
Tywin
Lannister says, like, basically, no good king says, I am your king. And then it cuts to a quote from Viserys being like, I am your king. They're like, this fucking guy.
So it's very rare that I get to like tie in this type of thing, but to answer your question, no. I think he's too nice.
Yeah.
So let me tie this in. So this is a thing from history. This is an actual thing. So
Or even the Romans and Greeks.
Here we go. So in the civil war between Caesar and Pompey, Caesar goes on record and writes a letter to the Senate basically saying that, like, how can you follow this guy? Like, how can you say that you're going to follow this guy? He actually loves his wife. Like, are you kidding me? Which makes it so Pompey's wife dies, right? And so he's very distraught and like he can't get out of bed. He's super depressed. And Caesar's like, you're going to follow this. Look at this guy. He's crying over his wife. To make it worse, the woman who died, Pompey's wife, was Caesar's daughter.
Oh.
And he's like, what a bitch. Like, he's like, look at this guy fucking crying, right? So so I started thinking about that because that's a true story, by the way. That's an absolute true story.
That's amazing.
So that to me is when thinking about Viserys, I mean, that's what I think of is like, he's too nice. Like he's trying
also,
to.
But he's also like a child raised in splendor and again, in a time of peace and prosperity. So he doesn't know war. He doesn't understand attrition. He doesn't understand any of those things.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like when we see Robert Baratheon, and then obviously when we see Daenerys, we see Jon Snow, they all went through some shit to get there.
Like
they saw some shit.
They saw some shit. However, he's also not a great husband, as witnessed by one of the most difficult scenes to watch in episode 1, where he's basically like, "Hey, let's do this," and like, no, it's not going to work. And then he loses both child and wife, and that's what leads him into this now predicament where he has to marry his daughter's friend and the Hand of the King's daughter, who, what was she, 14 15
15. But that, so to me, that was a decision to make his friend happy, and in his friend Otto,
I disagree.
No,
so I think that it's more Otto being little fingery and manipulating. It's not, and it wasn't to make him happy. It was, he kind of was like, hey, don't marry the Valerian girl, follow your heart, because he knew he was the one who had sent his daughter to comfort him. Yes. And so he knew that he was friendly with his daughter because his daughter was telling him. So he's like, follow your heart. And he was manipulating him into that. Yes.
But that's what I mean. Like
he's easily manipulated.
Right. Yeah.
Too stupid.
Yeah,
he hasn't seen enough shit.
Yeah.
He's a doofus, kind of
a doof.
A little bit.
Kind of a doofus.
Little soft.
There's
you
no
don't
way.
know the real world. You like Scheim said, you were raised in kind of like riches and like the
Silver spoon kid.
Yeah, like you don't know what this really is.
He's a prep school boy.
That's right. Trust fund, bitch.
Anyway, Allison Hightower, no way really likes him, right? Or does she?
I think she cares about him, but isn't like in love with him.
Not trying to bang him.
But what's super creepy is that she's pregnant for the second time.
Yeah.
With his seed, bearer of his seed, and then she goes up to like Rhaenyra and is like, "Why aren't we friends anymore?" And she's like, "Bitch, are you serious? Like you're banging my dad." Like,
also, can we talk about this second pregnancy? She looks like she has a giant fucking beach ball underneath that dress.
Maybe it's twins. Could it be twins? Oh no, twins more run in the Lannisters than they do the Targaryen. Oh no, isn't Daenerys the twin?
No, Viserys was older than her.
Oh, he's older. Yeah, just an older brother. He didn't last long. But yeah, no, she got the boy right away. And then so we jump ahead. So he's 2. And so I guess the answer would be, or my question would be, going back to Viserys, when he has to name an heir, based on what we know right now, should he have just named Rhaenyra, who is his first kid, but also it would be the first time ever a woman was on top? Should he have named his brother, who was a loose cannon?
Phrasing. Or
what do you do?
So I mean, so he names Rhaenyra, and it seems like he's gonna stick with it. Like he's kind of he seems, at least for now, like he's gonna stick with this decision. To his, I guess, credit, he loves his daughter, but at the same time, like you're seeing Otto really trying to push, like, hey, make my grandson the king.
Yeah. And I think what ultimately, so he's still dealing with that flesh-eating bacteria. He's still got like meningitis, right? So he's like rotting, basically. Because they didn't say anything, but like he picked up his cup once and you could see he lost fingers.
2 fingers out. Yeah.
And as a literary guy, Davey, you'll appreciate this. It is at least my understanding, it is the Iron Throne is almost treated like a living thing, where when kings are sitting on it and they perform poorly, it starts to injure them and they get cuts. And this one in particular is not healing. And so it is basically the throne is outright rejecting him.
Yes. And I think that will ultimately kill him. This is my big prediction for this season. And that would leave Millicent and Otto to kind of determine what happens next. And I think they're going to Allison. What did I say? Millicent?
Yeah.
Allison. And they are going to, for lack of a better term, like just bone Rhaenyra out of the whole thing.
Yeah. And then the kid, which is Aegon.
Is that the Mad King?
No, that's the Mad King was Aerys. He's like 4 or 5 generations after this.
Yeah, he's later. He's much later. But yeah, so because right now they're still determining that whole thing, so I'm sure that's coming. And oh, by the way, when they do the time jump, Alicent,
yeah.
Fucking awful.
Very weird. You just name her Allison. It's very easy.
Allison.
No, there always has to be like an extra letter.
Alicent. Olivia Cook, who, for people who watched Bates Motel and I think the Ouija movie, like the sequel, it's something else. Actually, you know what, Raj, she was in The Sound of Metal.
Oh, she was in and she was in Ready Player One.
In Ready Player One, she's playing the older version. She's awesome. So I'm looking forward to that. Although I feel like that's kind of weird and maybe not entirely necessary, because I think it's gonna be a 10-year time jump we're getting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And by the way, the unfortunately named Millie Alcock, I think is really good. The girl playing Rhaenyra. I'm sad that we're not going to get to see her anymore, because she's actually really, really good.
I think all the actors have been pretty good so far. Is Daemon Targaryen? Now, we haven't seen enough of them, but we saw a pretty wild episode 3. Is he a top 10 fighter in Game of Thrones?
No shot.
Okay. That was pretty
Immediate
impressive.
reaction.
That beach run that he had, though.
Did you see him at the jousting event? He got his ass beat by Otto's oldest son, Gawain. Gawain.
Lost to a dude named Gawain.
Yeah, he lost to a dude named Gawain.
That's the Green Knight, man.
Yeah,
that's Gawain is the who fights the Green Knight. But
yeah, but you could argue that like jousting shouldn't be the be all.
But then they actually fight with sword. Like Daemon fights him with the sword after the jousting and loses.
True.
What would be your weapon? Like if you once you got dehorsed, sword.
Yeah,
I would be a dual wield sword guy.
Okay.
All right. What are you?
I don't.
Flex-
I'm out on shields.
What are you, Ahsoka Tano?
Yes. Actually, no. I would go with like a small fat sword for more of parrying.
So parrying.
And,
Yep.
Yes, and then another attacking sword, if you will.
What about chain? Or what's the fucking ball with the spikes
The
on
mace.
A mace. Yeah.
What would you use, Dave?
I love like that big round hammer, like that two like handed like that
Oh,
the
the
one
Warhammer.
Yeah.
Like Robert Baratheon's Warhammer.
Yep.
Oh,
I like a
Baratheon.
Warhammer, and but the guy who, it was almost like a mace, but it was like just like a steel ball.
Yeah.
Like I always loved. You see Gangs in New York when the guy who had the Blackthorn.
Yeah.
He just had that club. Like that's.
How about
that's
the
kinda my
fucking
speed.
big stick they gave to Viserys to go kill the deer?
And then he fucked it up. Like he didn't know how to do it. Like that was so
pathetic.
pathetic.
They're like, try the left. Try him actually in the heart.
A little farther left there.
Yeah, hit it behind the shoulder. You hit it in the shoulder blade. You got to go a little that way. Yeah.
It's like tied up. You're like, dude, like, what are we doing
It's like,
here?
what? Come on,
Like
man.
a baby could have gone up there
I
and
was like, oh,
sliced
you're
it.
so badass. Like those people who like go on those safaris to shoot
is.
big game, and the thing's basically dead when they get to it.
Yeah, no, it's 100% that. They're like, the other guys snuffed it out. The other guys tied it to a tree. They hand him a weapon
For
he
days.
kill it.
Like they're
He
tracking
misses.
it for days.
They chased the thing for days. They starved it, and then they tie his antlers up to a tree. And they're like, "Go ahead and stab it." And he's like, "Can't even do it."
My favorite part of that too is when the guy, the hunter, comes up and he hands him the feces or the scat, and he's like, "Here, it's fresh." He smells it. He's like, "Oh, it's fresh."
He's like, yeah, I just told
Eats
you
a
that,
little bit of
idiot.
it. Like, did you eat it? No. I was smelling it. I'm tracking it.
I would have taken the guy's word for it. I'd be like, all right, man, you do the
It's
thing.
good.
Yeah.
I'll be back out. Come get me out of my tent.
Speaking of that spear, by the way, can we just also mention how big a dickheads the Lannister kids are?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
Just fucking
assholes.
tool bags.
twins.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fucking twins.
Jason
again.
and Tylen.
Real quick, now that deer, they call it a white heart, and like seeing a white heart on the naming day was supposed to be a big deal, but it really wasn't a white heart. It was actually a brown one,
Which
But
is
that-
again like
yeah, sort of like oh shit, maybe not that great. Is that the what's on the flag of the Baratheons?
The stag.
yeah.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
And so that's, I mean, again, we talk literary devices here. That's another, omen that like what you thought you were going to get, you don't get. And the
Yeah,
person who sees it is Rhaenyra.
Yes.
So like, that's the,
Yeah.
this is the one you should be looking at, not
How about-
this one. Yeah.
Rhaenyra's relationship with Sir Kristen Cole, who she hand selected to join the team. He seems like a good dude so far.
Love me some Kristen
Interesting.
Cole.
Interesting. Because I thought they were leaning towards, at the beginning with her and Alicent, I thought they were leaning more towards same sex couple. And then they,
Gotcha.
But then also you also got the tension between Daemon and Rhaenyra. So there was that. So maybe she just likes to play both sides of the field, and to her credit, maybe that's the way
I
she
know.
goes.
Scheim, our co-worker Courtney Cox, when I was talking to her about the show in the hallway, that was her prediction, was that Rhaenyra and Daemon were gonna get together and then like
Okay.
really form like a superpower, and then their kid would have like a real right to it, if not one of them or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, possible. I didn't see that as much.
and what was that whole thing they were telling Rhaenyra to marry? Hightower was trying to tell Rhaenyra should marry Aegon. Or
Yes. Yes, that's exactly what he said.
Yeah,
He
like,
said
what the fuck?
Hightower
Like,
said you should
two-year-old.
betroth his daughter to his son. Yes.
So that way it's no question. And then that
people
way,
stop asking about it, and it stays literally in the family. Now, it's as fucking gross as that is. It is half brother, half sister. Still gross.
And-
don't get me wrong.
But no. But
but
even
then
still, like
she can't contest with him, because then it makes him
Yes.
the surefire. Because as the male in the relationship, like there's no question, you can't question it.
And to be fair, like it's as gross and weird as it is for us, like incest in the Targaryen
It's the whole thing.
dynasty is 100% in play. Like the first Targaryen king literally married both of his sisters.
Yeah.
Polygamy and incest, both A-OK in the Targaryen blood.
And may I be the first to say, nice.
Listen, I'm man enough to say I'm against it.
I am not for that. That incest is ultimately bad. Have you been around golden retrievers that have been puppy milled out? Idiots. Pissing all over themselves.
Idiot. Oh, these guys, you can't train them. Can't train a goddamn thing. So yeah, that is a big Targaryen shtick for sure. Valerian. You'd mentioned Valerian, Scheim, big name that we hear. There's the Valerian steel, right? Isn't that what?
So this is different. Valerian steel refers to the kingdom of Valeria.
Where it
this
comes
is
from, right?
Yes, this
Yeah.
is Valerian, the family who owns I think it's Driftmark. They're like the major trading family
That's
in
not
Westeros.
fucking confusing at all. George R. R. Martin. Why would you have a Valyrian
Well,
name?
because
One's an adjective and one's a family name.
the reason they take the name is because they are also people of Valyria. So you hear Robert the Strong, Lionel Strong, mentioned to King Viserys when he mentions the Valyrian daughter. He said they too have the blood of Valyria within them, on top of being the daughter of his cousin, because the Valerians are from Valeria but do not possess the same dragon blood that the Targaryens do.
And might I add, white dreadlocks are fucking dope.
Badass, right?
Right?
Yeah,
They all look fucking all of them. Corlys, his brother, what is it? Like Vaemar and his son, they all look like absolute studs.
Yeah. White dreadlocks are the shit. I'm just going to add that right there.
Now, I'll tell you who I loved and I had a lot of questions about, and now it seems like maybe I have less questions about the crab feeder. When they were like talking about him and then they show him at the end of episode 2, and I was like, hello, like look at this showman. Like that is different. Like just battling on the shores of a beach and then just having crabs eat all the people. And then he looks like he himself has been eaten by a crab.
And tease. That's the question I had. So
grayscale.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Stone skin. And
yes,
and that's what grayscale. And is that what took out the Valeria?
No, Valyria was destroyed by the eruption of the volcanoes. The Doom of Valyria was like the eruption of the volcanoes. The Stone Men was a whole different like plague of guys that contracted grayscale. You saw Jorah and Tyrion fight them, and then Jorah ended up getting it.
That's what I was. Are they those people? Like, is he one of those?
Yeah, that disease comes from them, but he was not, in fact, a stone person. He was the leader of what's known as the Triarchy, which is like Tyrosh, Mir, and another city formed this like power struggle. Yeah, like a triumvirate of cities, and he was their leader. And they are on the same continent as like Pentos and stuff like that.
You know what he looked like? Do you guys ever see the movie The Golden Child? This is a deep pull with Eddie Murphy. So there was like these bad guys. He looks like, I'm going to post it on Twitter. Like he looks just like the bad guy in one of the bad guys in The Golden Child.
Yeah, do a side by side. Do a side by side for people. So you mentioned Mir. So Thoros of Mir. So that'd be where he's from. Okay.
Yep. Cool. Exactly.
So Drahar, is there a backstory with him, Scheim? Other than like he was just kind of working with them and a part of this whole thing? Like
you mean the crab feeder?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Drahar, his last name was Drahar, right?
Maybe that I might have missed that one.
Well, at one point, I think when Daemon shows up, I remember being like, "Oh shit, he knows who he is." Like he wasn't just calling him crab feeder. He was like, "Drahar, like get out of here, Drahar." Like he was calling his name.
Yeah.
I watch the show with the subtitles on sometimes, so it fucking pops
okay.
up.
So I think I might have misunderstood that, and him saying Dracarys and his dragon lighting
stuff
on
he
fire.
Definitely said Dracarys, but he also calls him. Let me double check this: crab feeder. House
crab
of
feeder.
Yeah, he's got a whole name. Kragus Drahar, Drahar.
Yeah, I'm gonna be completely honest. I know nothing about this guy, and the way they did him, I don't think you're necessarily supposed to.
No, but he was like so intriguing. I'm like, oh, this guy plays out for a while. Like, what a fucking creep. Like, what a great villain. And then the next thing you know, he's like sawed in half and he's like getting dragged across the beach. I'm like, all right, this guy's dead.
Guts just hanging out.
But wasn't it weird too? Yeah. So Daemon comes out after that, after like cutting the guy, and
which was great, by the way. With them just being awesome. like, hey, Daemon, like Viserys has sent help. He's like, I'll fucking kill you. And he like kills that guy. And then
he literally punches the shit out of that guy.
Yeah, that guy and goes storms the castle. He's
trying to kill the messenger. But when he comes out and he's dragging him, right? He kind of looks like him.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like he kind of has the hair is like all scraggly and like dark and like
he's covered in he's covered in blood, which looks like that red burnt skin that the crab feeder had.
Yeah.
Crazy. Fucking awesome. By the way, Scheim, you mentioned Driftmark earlier.
Yep.
That is the name of episode 7.
Yeah, I think Driftmark is going to play a major role. The Valerians in general are going to play a major role in being, the richest house in Westeros. Look at what we saw with the Lannisters being the richest house in Westeros in Game of Thrones. And then on top of that, the Lord of that land being married to the queen who never was. Like, it's kind of this, it is setting up for for them to be major players.
I like it. I also like Rhaenyra kind of shitting on Casterly Rock, which he's like, yeah, they want me to marry the Lord of Casterly Rock. Like, fuck this. Whereas, like, that's all you heard about in Game of Thrones, like how magical that place is. And you're like, all right, get out of here.
Bunch of fucking dickheads.
Yep. You also got a reference in the first episode to Lord Rickon Stark of Winterfell.
Yeah, I believe he swore fealty to Rhaenyra when she was named heir.
Yeah.
But that's all we've heard from the Starks. Yeah.
That's it. But we do have way more dragon. There's been some sweet dragon action in this, I'd have to admit. Now, whether you guys want to call them dragons or not, just for the sake of it.
Actually.
The wyvern action.
Yeah.
Who is the king of the sea snakes or whatever the fuck they were calling it?
Corlys Velaryon.
That's Velaryon. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, very good.
He's the sea snake.
So the
Great
next
name.
episode is called King of the Narrow Seas.
And that's Daemon, right? So now Daemon, they showed it in the preview that he's now saying they named me the King of the Narrow Sea.
And he's shacked up in Dragonstone, isn't he?
Yeah.
Well, he was. I don't know if he still is, because he's been fighting all this time, and technically Dragonstone is the rightful home of Rhaenyra. But ultimately he's basically gonna walk around the step zones and be like, or swim around, or ride a ship around the step zones and just be involved in this like trading zone, I guess. I don't really know what the end goal is for him.
All right,
what's going on with his hooer?
I believe she's still back at his home.
Yeah, she's just
one thing I like is banging hooers.
So after King of the Narrow Seas, episode 5 is We Light the Way. I feel like that has to be Dragon Fire Breath in name. Episode 6 is The Princess and the Queen. You can imagine who's at the center of that one. Number 7, Driftmark. Number 8, The Lord of the Tides.
Not the Prince of Tides, unfortunately.
The Lord of the Tides. No. Number 9, The Green Council. Green Council. And number 10, or the final episode. By the way, this has already been picked up for a season 2.
Yes, sir.
The end of this season is going to be The Black Queen.
So I'm really curious. You mentioned they get picked up for a season 2. I'm really curious if this one season is going to be this specific story, and the next season will be a different Targaryen story. Just because it's House of the Dragon. So I guess they could do that. I don't know if they're going to do it similar to the book, where it's a collection of different stories throughout the Targaryen timeline, or if it's just going to be these characters in season 2 again.
Now, do you guys think, or would you even want there to be like a prequel, like right before Game of Thrones, where you see like Jaime Lannister kill the Mad King? Like, would you even want that? Would they do that? Do you have any interest in that?
No, I think that's well trodden. Like we're good. Like that story's been told, even in flashback, like them
that would
telling
be
that story,
that would be the real Star Wars approach. Like we're gonna take
like
place.
They're gonna run.
Like you guys have already talked about Obi-Wan, beating up Darth Vader, but we're gonna show it to you.
If they were smart, they would do it Rogue One-esque and just make a movie, and everybody knows how it ends, sure, but everybody wants to see how you get there.
Yeah, and there'd be like one twist, like one thing that like history forgot.
Yeah,
and then there'd be everything else. Because I don't know if people want those characters back, or like if we'll ever see any of those actors. I guess the guy that played Jaime Lannister was like an extra on one of these. Like he popped up in the first episode. But like, would you want to see anybody from Game of Thrones come back? Like if they keep making prequels, like obviously you're going to get closer to it.
Well, isn't there rumored to be like a Jon Snow series being made?
I think so. I think,
but
based on the numbers that they're putting up, they're going to do spinoffs galore.
Yeah.
So what I love about this, and I think it would be really cool. So like Chris said, so I love that House of the Dragon is about the Targaryens. I would love to see
like house stories.
Yeah, so it'd be like Dorne. Like we go to Dorne and we see like that, or like the Dondarrions. Like we go and we have like every season is like a different family, and like how they all interconnect and how they all get to that flashpoint of the
I like it.
The Night King. Like how they all got there.
I believe also too, one of the rumored spin-off series is called like 10,000 Ships, which it was now already been mentioned in this series and in Game of Thrones, which is the story of like Nymeria Targaryen, who was like the very first like warrior woman Targaryen. And you heard Alicent quizzing Rhaenyra on it in episode 1 of House of Dragon, and it's also what Arya named her direwolf, because it's just she's such a strong and powerful woman figure in the history of this universe that she would be the main character.
I knew that name sounded familiar and I didn't know why.
Yeah, that's awesome. I also love in episode 1 they already mentioned like the true battle is like winter, and they mentioned like winter's coming. This is like 200 years before fucking winter shows up, but like I love that they're even like setting it off then. All right, Scheim, I know you got to get up real early tomorrow. Any final thoughts here from you?
Yeah, I definitely watch this show if you haven't already. I think it's gonna end up being really good. I'm really excited right now. I would say my favorite character going forward is Sir Criston Cole. I'm excited for what he can bring. I want to see what he does. I think Damon's awesome. I think he's a blast.
Who was the guy in the High Council who told the king to marry the Valerian girl? Who was that?
That would be Lionel Strong. He is the Lord of... Oh crap, where is he? I forget where he is, but like
he is the Lord of Sound Advice. He's my favorite right now. Like he's the guy who's like,
because he was also the guy in the most recent episode where he's like, the king's like, oh, you're gonna tell me to marry your daughter, and he's like, no, you should marry, or Rhaenyra should marry your son. He's like, no, you should marry Rhaenyra to your own son.
Yeah, I like him.
Yeah, Lionel Strong. How strong? They have a nice little flag here. I like that. I like how in depth and detailed it gets. You like random houses, and they have like a little like banner and a motto, their coat of arms.
Have you ever read one of these books? By the way, I know Scheim has. Have you ever read one of these books? I read a fucking whole chapter on like where the beer they were drinking in the pub came from.
Dude, George R. R. Martin can do about 30 pages on just one dinner. It's wild.
Yeah, it was 30 pages on one. It was like 3 chapters on one dinner, but like one chapter was devoted to like the beer they were drinking, like where it came from, and like
stuff.
Like
the one interesting fact I will leave you with. The one interesting fact I have, at least, difference between the book and the show so far. The one major difference is that Viserys didn't have to do a C-section on his wife in the book. That was actually a different wife who was married to a Baratheon. So fun fact there for you.
I like that.
How about that?
Change some of the stuff up a little bit. All right, Scheim, always a pleasure. At Scheim Time, you can get him on Twitter and check him out on the Greg Hill Morning Show, Six Rings Podcast, the whole thing. And we'll see you next week for more House of the Dragon.
Oh man, I can't wait! I'm so excited, boys.
Hey, God love you. Can't wait to see you next week.
Happy.
There goes. I dumped him.
You dumped him.
I dumped him. I thought he was done.
Bye. Enough of you. Okay, bye.
I don't know how to work the buttons. That was very good. Scrim note, and it's so helpful because there's definitely times where you or me are like, I think this means this, and he's like, no, just so it keeps us on track, and then we don't get lost just googling shit the whole.
Yeah, I'm glad we have Scrim and Shark who are like our Game of Thrones like.
Oh yeah,
like I have any question, I can go to either one of them and be like,
100%. You get a book question, you go to Shark, you go to Scheim, and they got an answer for you. So next week we'll do House of the Dragon episode 4. There might be a little bit of a break. There's gonna be like She-Hulk at some point and shit like that. So that's what we'll just keep on keeping on. But who is your favorite character, by the way, through 3 episodes?
So Lionel Strong.
He is okay. He's your favorite.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I like the crab feeder, but he's gone.
Yeah, he's not coming back. I don't think.
The dragons are pretty sick though so far. I do like Sir Criston Cole though. I think he might be my guy. All right.
Pick of the bomb.
Pick of the bomb. Pick of the bomb.
Pick of the bomb.
All right, Ryan, would you like to kick, receive, defer, or you may choose at this time to defend a goal?
I will defend I'll take the wind in the second half.
Fair enough. Well, I'll receive. How about this Saturday is Oktoberfest?
Sure is.
I know it's September, but it's already the 10th. And at Idle Hands are doing it once again. I'm thrilled to be emceeing the Stein hoisting competition, and this time it is a qualifier for the state tournament. So there's no fucking around. There's no leaning back. There's none of that. You spill a drop, you're out. So 5 o'clock for that. There's also going to be a dunk tank throughout the day, including our buddy Goo, Scheim, who was just on, Fitzy, a bunch of other guys are going to be in the dunk tank. and they always have the Oompa band there and all their great beers. So it's a great turnout. So go to Idle Hands this Saturday. I think doors open at noon, and you got stuff going on all afternoon. So I will be there. Hopefully we run into some of you guys there as well.
And I will try to be there sometime later in the afternoon. There is some start of school things going on and all that fun stuff, but I will try to at least make an appearance in Malden at Idle Hands because it'll be my first one. I haven't had the opportunity to be there before.
No, you've always been
living
so far
states away, but now I might be able to shoot over for a little bit.
It's a good time.
Yeah. So my POP, my pick of the pod, is a Hulu program entitled The Patient, which is starring Donald Gleason and Steve Carell in a dramatic role. The premise of the story, Steve Carell is kind of a psychiatrist or a psychologist who works out of his home, and Donald Gleason is his patient, who also happens to be a serial killer who then kidnaps him. So that's all I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
And he chains him in the basement and like all these things. And it's actually very well acted. Obviously it doesn't have a lot of outside. It's just like these two phenomenal actors just like talking to each other for most of the time. But there was 2 episodes out. The third one comes out tonight at midnight. Big cliffhanger. You watched it, right? Did you even watch it yet?
Yeah, I did. Oh no, I watched both episodes.
Big cliffhanger in the second episode. I'm excited to see where this goes.
And they're short episodes. The first episode was
Half
like
hour.
20 minutes.
Yeah,
It was like
short.
real quick. And it's on Hulu. I have the fucking sit through the ads, but still it was a good first 2 episodes. So Donald Gleason, of course, was Hux in the Star Wars. He was also the main guy in Ex Machina, which we've talked about on this podcast. So yeah, I definitely recognize him. I've also come to the conclusion, I feel like Steve Carell, if he's clean shaven, it's a comedy. And if he has a beard, it is not a comedy.
That is an astute observation. By the way, funny. So I believe it looks like Domnhal, but it's pronounced Donal.
Yeah.
But he was in a movie called About Time, which, Richard, was the last movie I saw that brought me to tears.
Really?
Yes. If you've never seen the movie About Time, it's not what you think. It's one of those movies that pitches itself as like a romantic comedy, and it is not that.
I don't remember the last movie that did that. I'm trying to think. There definitely was one. I can't remember.
I am not, and if you've seen About Time, I am not ashamed to say that. Like if you, what an unbelievable movie that him and Rachel McAdams are in that movie.
Okay.
Yeah. Check that movie out.
You know what show almost makes you cry all the time is not you, but maybe the plural you. Ricky Gervais's Afterlife.
Oh God.
Because that's a fucking stinger, and then it gets you with the laughing. Here you are laughing, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, you get punched in the gut.
That's the thing. That's the great thing about that show is like you get, you're like, oh, Billy the cunt, AIDS. Like you have that, and then then all of a sudden the next scene you're like, wait a minute, like I'm not okay. Like this isn't all right. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that show's wild. But all right, yeah, that'll do it. Next week, House of the Dragon, episode 4. So let us know what you guys think of this show. Hit us up, dorkpodcast@gmail.com. You can also send in your should I have bought this to that same address. Tweet us, follow us on Instagram, follow the YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/dorkpodcast. We stream these episodes Monday nights. I was going to ask you, I feel like because at least early in the season, we're not going to be just a show review. We should keep it Monday. People are used to Mondays, but maybe as we get later in the season, maybe we do one like right after the episode for House of the Dragon. I mean, yeah, I feel like when we did that with Game of Thrones, that was good. But we'll figure that out. TBD on that. And again, you can keep up with everything that's going on the Twitter. Ryan, you don't give a shit about anything, do you?
What'd you say?
I said you don't give a shit about anything, do you?
Not really.